Okay, it's 7 o'clock now, so we're gonna go ahead and start the April 1st zoning commission meeting, the regular meeting. And the first item has to do with attendance and alternates. And I know Tucker Sauls is ill tonight, he's not gonna be with us, so Jackie, if you're willing, Jackie's down. Jackie, you're the next alternate in terms of the rotations.
Sure.
If you're willing, okay, then you're sitting for Tucker tonight. Okay. And for the next item of business, we need to review the minutes of the meeting from Monday, March 18th. I hope everyone's had a chance to review them. They're not as long as we sometimes I didn't see any need for revision or typographical issues, so.
I had a let's see, this might be like a grammatical thing.
Oh.
I know, sorry. Under general commissions, draft text amendment, the second point, Mr. McGregor presented similar regulations implemented in comparable towns. Is that a bad comparable?
I would concur.
Yeah, I would say that's probably right. I would say that's probably right.
Any other comments, suggestions, corrections? Hearing none, I'd like to get a motion to approve the minutes as they were submitted with that one change on line 62.
I move that we approve the minutes as submitted with the one revision.
I will second.
So the second is Diane and Tony made the motion. So any other comments, discussion? All in favor, say aye please.
Aye.
And those opposed, nay. Hearing no nays, it's approved 6-0. And the next order of business is the application 2408 regarding the Simsbury Farms complex and a new sign to be is proposed for the corner where the driveway goes down to the plains. Is there somebody here that's going to speak to it? Okay.
I'm Tom Taberski, I'm the Culture Parks and Recreation Director.
Tom, you wanna get over to the
There you go. Come on up, Tom. Tom Taberski, Culture Parks and Recreation Director. I work at the Simsbury Farms complex. So what we're looking to do is replace the V-shaped wood paneled sign by the road with a two-sided sign that's gonna be perpendicular to the road, so the V shape will go away. So that's what we have now. The new sign will be perpendicular to the road, slightly bigger than what that it is now. It's gonna look like this on both sides. The design and review board made some recommendations to change that slightly. We're gonna put a little bit of a curve to the top of the sign, kind of going toward the middle, like a little bit of a dome. We're gonna insert a red apple into the top of that dome above the Y, basically where that is there. And we're gonna make the sign a little wider so that the address of 100 will face the road, like it does now. My initial thought was leave the 100 out, but they thought it'd be a good idea to add it back in. This sign is different than some signs you've probably seen before in town. It's gonna be completely foam and plastic, and if you wanna pass this down, you can kind of get an idea what it is. It's durable, it's easy to maintain, but everything from the ground up is gonna be basically made out of this material. We're keeping the color scheme similar to what we've done in the other parks the last few years, as they've been popular, well received, and we're just doing something with the stone base here a little bit different, because Simsbury Farms is a little bit different, so it's a little more special place. So, any questions?
So did you say this there's stone and then foam, or the
No,
stone
the
is
stone
going to
base
be
is
foam?
actually gonna be, it's a faux stone base.
Interesting.
It's been we've seen some samples of it used at daycares and banks and things like that. I mean, you wouldn't even know from the road that it's
Really?
any different.
Interesting, okay.
And this is lit, correct?
It is, the current sign is lit out there now. We had the lighting upgraded when we did the parking lot sign, lighting a couple of years ago. So those were new floodlights put in on either side, so we're just gonna adjust it.
And the location staying the same?
Yes, other than the sign being located to the middle of the little garden island now instead of taking up, two sides of it.
So it won't match, cause I thought the plan, it was like a unified plan for all of the parks, so the signs all did look similar,
So-
so now.
All of the signs the rest of the signs are on poles. This one, again, Simsbury Farms being a little different, and we have that island there that's always kind of been there. It's beautification does a great job down there, the beautification committee. We thought this sign should be a little bit different. So it's a little bit bigger than those signs that are outside Curtis Park, the Flower Bridge, the panel.
Mountain,
The panels
yeah.
Onion Mountain, West Mountain Park, those panels are smaller than what's there. The color scheme remains the same. That wood, you're gonna see it, the stone base is actually gonna be ground level, those aluminum posts are buried, so you don't see those.
Oh, I was wondering.
And then the landscaping will kind of come up around it like it does now. You wanna go back to one picture, or a couple pictures, you can see the landscaping. I think there's a better picture somewhere in there.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, so
In your
the
material.
Russell,
The Russell Shaw sign,
Yeah.
that was an add-on in the early 2000s, Jackie, you might have been here when that happened, it was early 2000s, I was here at the time, they renamed the clubhouse in honor of Mr. Shaw and put the sign there. What I would like to do is relocate that sign or the same similar type of wording on the building itself. It doesn't, I don't believe it needs to be down by the road.
For anybody who doesn't recognize Mr. Shaw, he's on the left.
oh, good to
That
know,
would be nice on the building too.
yeah,
It doesn't help anyone with wayfinding on
It
the
does,
street, cause no one knows that's what they're looking
Correct.
for.
I didn't know until just now.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. Interesting, yeah.
Now, just the sign that's being replaced. What is the strategy there? Is this thing, suffered from time and
I would venture to guess that sign's at least 30 to 40 years old. Most of those wood signs in town are pretty old, and that thing's been glued back together about 3 or 4 times, and I think it's paint and glue holding it together at this point. And again, I think we're gonna save a little money on this sign. I think to keep it more uniform with the other signs are most of them are two-sided that are perpendicular to the road in some cases. I think we can get away with a two-sided sign here. There was a little bit of a rise there on that garden island. Traffic coming from both ways is gonna see it.
Just out of curiosity, is that material environmentally friendly? Is it?
I don't know. I mean, it might be
Okay,
in some of the
I'm
verbiage.
just
It's-
curious.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that question.
Do you know, Tom, if anyone's ever hit the sign with a car? Is there any safety issues around?
The sign that's by the side of the road, I'm not aware of anybody hitting the sign, and thankfully we don't have any trees hanging over it, so a tree hasn't fallen on it, like some of our other signs.
It's a good ways in too, it's
what's that?
yeah.
Yeah.
This would be nice, like a little bumper.
Yeah.
Is it gonna be finished like on all sides, like so that,
Oh, yeah, you
like,
wouldn't
for
see-
example, the bottom, well, I know you won't see it, but like the bottom of the stone, for example, you wouldn't want it to be like this sitting and then
It's gonna be
this
sealed all the way
sitting-
around, yeah. So it's whether we shouldn't have to do any maintenance other than give it a power wash every once in a while, which we can't, it's hard to do with the paint on the wood sign, it would just take it all off.
Yeah, I did drive by, cause I remembered we had done the directional signs a couple of years ago, so then.
Three or 4 years ago. at
Yeah,
this
so I
point.
was questioning, but then I drove by and verified it is in fact a very old sign.
Yeah.
I can vouch for that,
Yeah,
cause I looked at it
if
just
we
now.
didn't do anything, I don't know that it would last through the season at this point, it's pretty cracked.
I might be jumping ahead on you here. Is this like the font size we're looking at?
No, this was just a sample that the manufacturer had, I wanted to kind of give you something to show more of the durability of it. It's really light, but it takes a beating.
Oh, I see it, it's finished with like a urethane on the back. No, it's not heavy.
Mr. Chairman, let me just jump in. It was this was reviewed this evening by the Design Review Board, and they did recommend approval of the sign to you as your advisory commission, and they recommended those 3 conditions that Tom alluded to. We did throw them on a slide just so you could see them, and make them, you know, if you get to that point, make them part of your motion, those recommendations. So that's street number, the kind of the arcing of the sign as opposed to a straight edge, and then the addition of the apple in the center of the arc.
I think the application said there already is lighting, to Tony's point, and it's so it's uplit from.
So, I don't see this with draft.
We did offer a draft motion on the screen, since we just wrote the draft motion about 10 minutes ago. You know, we were waiting for the design review commission to make their design review board, so there you go.
So for the zoning commission, does anybody have any further questions for Tom? Anything else you wanted to bring to our attention, Tom?
Nope.
Okay, well then I think we've got the application to consider and vote. So, does anybody have?
I'll do it. Do you want?
Oh, can you read it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, good.
I move to for the zoning commission to approve application ZC 24-08 of Thomas Taberski, applicant, the town of Simsbury owner, for a permit to construct a plus or minus 31.6 square foot sign at the Simsbury the Simsbury Farms at the property located at 100 Old Farms Road, Simsbury, Connecticut 06070, zone R40, as submitted subject to the sign plan dated 3/21/24, revised 3/27/24, with the following conditions: that the project shall be developed in accordance with the recommendations made by the Design Review Board at their April 1st, 2024 regularly scheduled meeting.
A second.
Who was that? That was Jackie?
That was Jackie,
Oh, okay.
yep.
So we have a motion and a second. Does anybody have further issues they wanna bring up or discuss? Not hearing them, why don't we just go ahead with the vote? All in favor, say aye please.
Aye.
And those opposed say nay. Then that's approved 6-0.
Thanks, Tom.
Appreciate it, thank you.
So Tom, thanks for your presentation.
Oh, you're welcome, thank you for your support.
Thanks for the visual aid. Yes.
Oh.
So, Mr. Chairman, the item number 2, this is it's really under your general commission business, because we haven't had direction to develop a true text amendment yet, but staff, Brittany provided a memorandum and an explanation of potential text amendment that we as staff has prioritized as we've worked with property owners over the last couple of years and see that this issue of substantial improvement is a significant issue for many property owners in town. And in fact, 3 of them are here tonight. We didn't invite them, so there is some interest, which is good. I'm gonna just let Brittany run you through what this means, because it typically when we're dealing with flood zone stuff, it could sound pretty complicated, but in this case, I don't really think it's that
You're gonna
complicated.
put up a slide with the flood zone mapping on it.
We're not gonna do that, no. We're not gonna do that tonight.
Confuse ourselves with details.
But we can do that next time. But yeah, so just think I don't know, Riverside,
Right, those
think Riverside. Yeah, how about that?
There's various areas in town that are part of the special flood hazard area. And all structures within these SFHAs have to meet a substantial improvement requirement that's included in our flood zone regulations. Substantial improvement is any reconstruction, maintenance, addition, basically anytime you need to get a building permit, those improvements count towards a 50% threshold that once over, either at 50% or over of today's market value of the home, requires complete restructure of the home to meet floodplain requirements. So our current regulations, if you want to go to the next slide. Our current regulations track these improvements right now over the life of the structure. Now we are proposing to amend that as it can hamstring owners
and make them avoid making necessary improvements to the home by changing the time period to a 10-year period instead, a shorter time period. We took a look at surrounding towns in the Farmington Valley area, and most all of them had that 10-year time period, with the exception of Farmington. Also, looking at the state of Connecticut, they have a model ordinance. They also included 10 years as its tracked time. So the actual text amendment is pretty simple. It's just the taking away of that wording that says taking place during the life of the structure and replacing it with taking place during a 10-year period. If there's any further questions.
So how do you track it? Do you track it through reviewing building permits?
Yes. Yep, I brought an example. So we have a street file here that has past building permits for it.
Alright.
And the staff developed a worksheet called the substantial improvement worksheet where we take the total of the past building permits from the beginning of the life of the structure, add them up, and then take the current market value of the home, and that's how we determine the percentage that they're at. This one happens to be at 44. This was in 2017. It was at 44% at the time that they applied for a building permit for their home.
Okay, thank
So
you.
and when we say life, just remember, we got houses built in the 20s and the 30s and the 40s and the 50s and the 60s. But if something was built in 1950, we're looking at 70 years worth of building permits. And in many of those cases, those property owners, fail's the wrong word. They choose not to undergo an additional improvement because of the burden associated with bringing the entire structure up to the full flood code.
So this would lessen the burden on homeowners in those flood areas.
Yes.
They wouldn't be held
I think it's a
captive.
significant reduction in their burden.
And you also have to remember, this goes beyond ownership. So a home can change ownership multiple times. A new homeowner can come in without knowing, past improvements that were made and, are surprised at the lack of flexibility that comes with it.
Speak up
And this doesn't have any implication on like their ability to insure the property. If we give it this rule, then they can insure the property through like FEMA or whatever is required for being in a floodplain. And if there were to be like a 500-year flood or whatever the thing is, they would be subject to receiving insurance. Like we're not boxing them out of any kind of
The
like ruining of properties.
Right.
the map location.
Right.
I'll just say it.
Yes.
The map location is what directs the insurance requirement.
Yeah, okay.
Not the level.
So if we agreed with the text, it would go to.
So we'd ask you to direct staff to finalize the language and schedule a public hearing. And I don't know what that would be, be May 1 or May 15.
And that would be the appropriate time to hear from the public. We're not hearing from the public tonight.
You got 3 folks here tonight, you don't normally do that, but it's up to the chairman, but.
Well, wait a minute, we're not done.
No. So normally we would have a public hearing, which folks could
But we
provide.
will have a public hearing, it's required.
If you direct, yes, if you agree that we
decide
should,
wanna move forward on this issue,
Absolutely.
there will be a public hearing.
yes, of course,
I don't want
yes,
folks to think there's no opportunity for the public.
100%.
This isn't a public hearing tonight.
No, it's not.
So, what I'm interested in is really 2 things. I'm in favor of doing this. And when I look at it, I think, why are we, in this position with obviously quite a different approach being taken by surrounding towns, and it's an important issue that's people in town, are concerned about, and for good reason. But I don't know if I don't remember this as being one of several issues that were suggested as sort of not easy things to fix, but less complicated and less time consuming than some other things we want to deal with down the road. But are there any other changes suggested by staff that we might, have a public hearing date set into 3 text changes that have to do with making the administration simpler or better for them?
So that's a good question.
But I have been thinking for a long time about and we had it in the last meeting, the regulations are so clear, they are to me anyway, on accessory dwelling units, the attached accessory dwelling units. If you fit the dimensions and that kind of thing, it's a slam dunk. It seems to me that it's a sort of a unnecessary requirement, over requirement to have, transferred from the town staff who have made an evaluation and worked with the people and know what they're trying to do. If it fits the requirements, I'm inclined to have, the town staff approve that, and maybe there's other things that we don't need to bring them forward. We don't need the residents to be, required to take that step if town staff can do it. So what I was wondering is not really in relation to this topic, but in relation to doing something a little bigger, if there were some other topics that were hanging around that we could take up.
So there are, but this was low hanging fruit for staff, we thought, because we'd been in conversation with property owners who've asked, for it, and it's simply a one line change. So that's why we brought this. Yes, there are others, but each and every one of these, engenders a good degree of research. I mean, everything sounds simple, but we've got to prepare memorandum for you to explain the issue. And then we've got to do strike through language. We've got to ask the town attorney to review the language. If you said, George, bring us 6 items for September 1st, I'd be like, great, see you then. But this is kind of at staff capacity when we have the time to do it, reviewing development applications and stuff. So that's why we came up with this. And so we would be happy to do that. And I'll put a little schedule together and show you what we can do.
Yeah.
But there might be people waiting.
Yeah.
I know, but
That's
my point was
exactly.
not to hold this one up.
Right.
Okay.
The fall
Yeah.
to someday in the future,
I can
I understand.
we can do that. In
I'm
fact,
not in favor of holding this back if there's people waiting.
Well, that question isn't before us right now anyway, wait till we get there. Okay. But does anybody else have need further explanation on
I
what's
have a quick question. I just wanna play devil's advocate. I think this is fine. I have no objections, but I'm curious, why would you do something that, like Farmington obviously has life of the structure too, like, is there a reason, is there something we're overlooking, or is there some downside to making this change?
Well, FEMA wants all structures in the flood zones to be compliant with the floodplain regulations. As a compromise, they have that 50% threshold. So I mean, ultimately, we'd love to eventually have all of our flood prone properties or flood zone structures in the flood zone become flood compliant because it's safe over time.
Sure.
But I think having it be 10 years versus life of the structure kind of has a balance between helping the homeowner make necessary improvements over time as opposed to taking the life of the structure and kind of limiting them.
Gotcha.
I think we want those property owners to do the maintenance and the things that they need to do. What we wouldn't want to happen is a house that's whatever X number of years old and the roof is up and it's time to do a new roof, and that triggers because of the life. We would never want a homeowner having to make some decision between not doing a roof and worrying about being triggering the over 50%. And I think that when you do the 10-year, that property owner who is gonna do some significant improvements in that 10-year period or a big job is gonna trigger that, and that'll be, we won't miss the big projects. If somebody's doing a huge addition on their property, this is likely gonna catch that over that time period. And that's when we want the entire structure, but we just wouldn't wanna penalize a poor property owner who wants to put a deck on and be like, well, you're over 50%. I mean, on a house that's got a fair market value of $250,000, that's those numbers add up pretty quick.
Sure. Okay, thanks.
I have another question. So are we taking any other incremental steps to come into compliance with FEMA's request that, their level of?
Right, so any new construction.
Okay.
So if a structure is proposing an addition, that structure has to be compliant with the floodplain regulations. So our office sees these permits all the time and we check to see if it meets a substantial improvement. But regardless, the new structure, the new part of the structure has to also be flood proof and compliant with the floodplain regulations.
So I guess I should have been a little bit more specific. So are we trending towards, say, you know, in 2 years having a conversation that we would like, you know, to go from 10 years to 8 years or something like that?
I think 10 years is a good time period to have. I think it's long enough where, like George mentioned, if there are substantial projects, they will hit it, but it still allows a homeowner to make those small improvements. So I mean, if we do hear from the public that this time period is not working, then of course we would revisit it. Now, we don't, as staff, we don't visit this that often. There are not a lot of homes that I've only been here 7 months, but in the past I haven't seen a lot of homes hit that substantial improvement and have to bring them into compliance.
Thank you.
Now, is there a provision for the homes in the historic district, you know, for instance?
Right, you can make improvements to homes with historic that are in historic districts that preserve that historic charm. Those do not count towards a substantial improvement, but they have to retain their historic designation for it.
And so for the few homes that are on the National Historic Register, they're swept in with the
Right,
historic district.
right.
So do you know if the towns that are now at 10 years, did they have longer periods previously, do you know?
We didn't, we didn't look at that, we just took it
It's really,
straight
yeah,
from
it's,
their,
yeah, it's
Okay,
10
so
years.
there
and
is
then-
from their
a trend.
ordinance, we looked at their ordinances.
Okay.
Yeah. We don't know if they've made adjustments over time, we can find out.
Alright,
I did reach out to the 10-year, the Avon Granby, East Granby, asked if there were any issues, and they have not had any, not met any problems.
But all those towns have the Farmington River to deal with it.
Yeah, they're all.
Anything else? No. Just to explain this, maybe I should have started there. Next time we have discussion of a text amendment, I will. But for those who don't know it, what we're talking about is a text amendment. We're not voting on a text amendment until there's a public hearing and we finalize if there's consensus among the commission members to go forward with a text amendment. There's some judgment involved in it, but as long as it's quite similar to what was presented for discussion, it can be voted on that night and that's the end of it. But what we're gonna talk about momentarily is going forward with this, we would vote tonight on having a public hearing. It's not a vote to adopt, it's a vote to have a public hearing and it's gonna come up within, I don't know, a short period of time. George is the calendar manager guy here, so anyway. When we have the public hearing, then the public is invited to take a few minutes and stand at the microphone and say whatever's on your mind. But there again, that's a public hearing, it's not a debate. It's intended to give the public a chance to make sure the zoning commission knows what their feelings are and considers that. And further discussion that would happen after the public hearing is closed, the commission has a discussion and the decision is made on whether to move forward or in fact, it can just be voted on as presented. But as I said, there's some judgment about how much change can be made. Is a public hearing going to be based on a document that's posted for people to see? This is the regulation that we're talking about. This is what we're gonna have a public hearing on. And so when people get up to the microphone, they have to stick to the issue of what was in the announcement. Well, I'm sure there are people very happy about some things in town and not so happy about others. They need to go to the Board of Selectmen meetings every twice a month. They can get 5 minutes for the Board of Selectmen to talk about what makes them happy and what doesn't. We stick to the issues of the zoning commission. So anyway, now, gentlemen in the back, now,
I wanted to provide a little information, but
there's an
we're fine.
if you think that we might go on the wrong track here, maybe you should, but otherwise you can wait until we actually have the public hearing.
Absolutely.
And somebody else's thought might trigger more on your part. Okay, so, that being said, does anybody have any further questions or comments on it?
I'm in favor of moving it to a public hearing.
Is that a
Second.
motion?
Yeah, I make a motion.
And that's a second.
I'll second that.
Shannon?
Thanks, Shannon.
Okay, so there's a motion and a second to establish a public hearing to consider the text amendment as it's been presented here. Now, we need a motion, we had a motion and a second, and if there's no other comments or questions, concerns, then we'll go ahead and vote. All in favor, say aye, please.
Aye.
And those opposed? Not hearing any opposition, then it's a 6 to 0 vote to move forward to the public hearing with the text amendment to provide as it was presented.
And for
So-
the commission and the public, Mr. Chair, it does look like we would probably be able to get that to the your May 6th regular meeting. That 30 days to the COG, we'll meet that. So yeah, it looks like we'll be able to get to May 6th, I think.
An oversight in my explanation that there are timeframes for the announcement. There has to be public announcement of the meeting. And there's minimum timeframes that we're conscious of as part of our duties on the zoning commission. So we have that settled then on likely on May 6th, there will be a public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you guys for coming.
Okay. I don't see anything else on the agenda, but is there anything else
I did have
I'd like to try to get to?
I did have one question for George. Is there any update on what's going on with the old Wagner Ford property?
Is there an update?
I have been in contact with the developer, and the developer continues to work on the leases,
Okay,
which have not been finalized, to my understanding.
okay.
What does that mean, releases?
The leases,
Oh,
the
leases.
leases
Those
for
that
those
lease.
users. We also have had a serious conversation with the developer about the condition of the property and whether we could move up demolition of the structure in advance of any development on site. So we are having that conversation. We had it this afternoon, in fact.
Okay.
So we would like to push them towards demolishing it. And typically a developer is gonna wanna do that all at the same time. They're gonna wanna do the demo and construction and building permit all at the same time, but I'd like to see whether we couldn't get them to commit to an earlier demolition than scheduled.
Actually, I also have a question. I hate to bring this subject up, but what happened with the whole food truck thing?
It was withdrawn.
Oh.
And so it's off the agenda indefinitely. But that was a proposal from the
No,
owner.
I thought
I
there
think-
was,
I think Diane was in
I
it
wasn't here,
was in
no, I
Charleston.
wasn't here, yeah.
I thought the way it was left was that
I thought it was
we're
gonna
gonna work on a
come
new
back.
text,
Okay,
that we're still looking at
Someday.
it, but no, I
Yeah.
I don't think it was something, I think
Well,
it's,
okay. There was no date certain
right,
suggested.
but I do think it's an ongoing issue that needs to be addressed.
Yeah, I
It's not
think we need
something
to
that's just off
resolve
the
that.
table
Yeah,
indefinitely.
right.
Is that gonna impact like Talcott Collective this spring if we don't move on that, or are they able to get some sort of variance to have food trucks there? I'm just thinking about like a really popular thing in town that everybody enjoys. And that's a significant part of their business.
what were we talking about?
I was saying the Talcott, I was just asking if specifically Talcott Collective is that problem, is us not finalizing text problematic to Talcott Collective?
I feel like, and George, correct me if I'm wrong, but they've been kind of doing their thing, like, if we haven't made a change, then they don't make a change.
We'll need to work with them on their options.
Okay. So they have options or they don't have options?
We'll need to work with them on their options.
Okay. So it's a
But last
problem.
summer,
Not to be
I don't know
specific to
about
that
the summer
business, I
before,
just
but-
know that that's
Sure.
critical to their business in
Yeah.
particular.
We've had them, so.
right. There's some sort of a workaround that's been
on properties, so.
I guess it sounds like we need to get the gray areas figured out then, I'm guessing. My humble opinion.
They stay gray. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and then another one, I hate to bring this up, but George, just tell me, have you heard anything from Silverman on the uncompleted building in front of their complex down there in Weetag?
No, sir, I have not.
I drive by there.
Only that there, I say no, but only that I understand that a lease has been signed
But most
with the
days
daycare
there's no one
center.
working on it.
Which building?
So-
First?
The old, the
commercial.
Silver,
Yeah,
the south building, the Hartford South.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
the
that
the
parcel.
north building at Hartford North,
Yeah, it's
that's what it is.
North, I was getting mixed up.
On the side of the driveway.
Yeah.
That's correct,
The daycare one.
the
Got
daycare facility, yes.
That's the rumor.
It's on the other building,
Silverman started.
No,
the smaller of the two.
no, no.
Okay.
We're on that lawsuit, we're gathering the record right now.
How much?
We're gathering the record on the suit that they filed.
Oh. Yeah. Okay. Anything else we need to do? How about a motion to adjourn?
I will make a motion to
I
adjourn.
will second.
Motion and a second to adjourn, all in favor, say aye,
Aye.
and those opposed nay. It's unanimous, 6-0, we're adjourned at 7:36. Oh, that clock is.
Yeah, 7:36.
It's more like 7:36.
7:36.